Hello everybody, this is Freddy from We Scale Your Brand, where we help 6-figure and 7-figure e-commerce brands scale through Facebook ads. And today's video will be all about retargeting, how to master your retargeting campaigns. We will be going over the optimal budget for your retargeting campaigns, then why high ROAS can be bad, then which audiences you should use, and then I have a small little bonus tip at the end of the video. So I would say let's dive right into it, and let's first go over the optimal budget when it comes to your retargeting campaigns, because a lot of people throw out those random numbers, 10%, 20%, 30% of your overall budget should be dedicated to retargeting, and why all of these can be right, all of those can be wrong as well. Because the only thing that matters when it comes to retargeting is your daily frequency. Not your overall frequency, your daily. And you want to make sure that your daily frequency stays between 2 to 3x. If it goes above a 3x, you're going to get punished for high you're going to get punished by Facebook with higher CPMs. People will report your ads because they simply see them too often. And anything below 2x, you're probably not spending enough against that particular audience. So how can you find out your daily frequency? You simply go to your retargeting campaign. And then what you want to do is go here where it says, breakdown, then time, and then day. And then you always need to have your frequency in place. And first of all, it looks 4.37, looks kind of high, frequency is high. You might be scared by that high of a frequency. But, in fact, if you look at the daily breakdown, you can see that on average, the person only sees your ads 1.63, 1.52, 1.51 times per day. So in that case, that is an overall campaign. In that case, I should have probably went ahead and increased the budget, or, I should have increased the budget back then. So this is, a few months ago. I didn't know it back then. But in this instance, if your daily frequency breakdown looks like this, what you want to do is increase the budget. Because, as I said, the goal is to stay between 2 to 3x per day. And that is the optimal retargeting frequency where you get the best ROAS for the most ad spend as well. If you're currently using ABO or CBO for retargeting, what I would recommend, especially when you're testing out this strategy, when you're testing or playing around with the daily frequency, is that you use ABO for testing, because I always use two simple rules, automated rules when it comes to retargeting. And then the first one is if daily frequency is below 2x over the past 3 days, simply increase the budget by 5%. 5% changes in your retargeting can do a lot. So I won't increase it more than 10%. And then the second rule is if your daily frequency is above a 3x, you want to decrease the budget by 5%. You could also use CBO for retargeting and then apply this to the whole campaign. But I usually like to do ABO for retargeting, so I have better control over each of those ad sets, Then the next step is, why high ROAS can be bad, especially in retargeting, because a lot of people are flexing with those high ROAS numbers. And I'm probably even not the best example myself, because as you can see, the ROAS here was 6.85. However, high ROAS can be bad because oftentimes it means you're simply not spending enough and therefore leave money on the table, right? So in this instance, I was probably leaving money on the table, probably could have increased the budget, accept a certain drop in ROAS, but probably make, even more money. Simply, to explain that, I've prepared a quick example. And this is, let's say your AOV is $50, your cost of goods sold at 25, your break-even ROAS is 2. In scenario 1, retargeting audiences all website visitors 180 days. So it's super broad. And in the first example, in the first scenario, you're only spending $50 per day against that audience and you're getting a 7x ROAS. Super good. You're highly profitable. Quickly, let's break this down. Our overall profit, running this, would be $125 per day, $350 revenue, $175 cost of goods sold, and $50 ad spend. So we would make $100 and $125 per day in profit. Awesome. You're profitable, highly profitable on a given day. $100 and $125 profit is extremely good. However, in scenario number 2, what we want to do is we simply increase the budget, right? Our daily frequency is, let's assume it is like it is in my example. It's somewhere around the 1.5 per day mark. So that means we have some room to play with, right? And we increase the budget and go ahead and increase it to $150 per day. Now our ROAS drops, which is totally normal. If you don't know why your ROAS drops, if you increase the budget, I have a separate video about that. However, let's assume for this example, our ROAS drops to a 4. You might be concerned, ROAS drop, this and that. However, if you look at the overall calculation, our revenue increased to 600. Our cost of goods sold also increased to 300. Same for the ad spend, which is now 150. However, if we, break this down, our profit is 150 per day. So that means even though our ROAS is lower, we are making more profit. If you understand this concept, you will go far when it comes to, Facebook ads, especially retargeting, because again, lots of people simply don't spend enough on their retargeting ads because they see those high ROAS numbers. They want to see those high ROAS numbers, especially maybe if you're like a freelancer or client, freelancer working with a client, you want to present them those high ROAS numbers. But the fact is that most likely if your ROAS is, anywhere, let's say above a 10x, probably even above a 5x, you're most likely leaving money on the table. Again, I'm a good example for this. I probably left some money on the table for this client in this instance. Probably could have increased the budget and made them more profit at the end. So, this explains why high ROAS can be bad for you, especially again when it comes to retargeting. This can also be the instance for top of the funnel, but that will be a different discussion. Just keep this in mind when you're running retargeting ads. Break this down by daily frequency, and if your daily frequency is not between the 2 and 3x mark, increase the budget. See how the ROAS drops, but also how much more revenue you make, and then you just kind of calculate it like I've done here. And you want to see if increasing the budget helps you generate more profit. The next thing is the audiences. Which audiences should you use? And before we go over that, I have prepared another quick example of that. We first have to understand the concept that the deeper person in the funnel, usually the higher the purchase intent is, but also the less you can spend against that audience because it's smaller, right? So super understandable example. Add to cart one day should theoretically give you the highest ROAS because it's the highest purchase intent, right? People who have added to cart on the last day. Let's compare that with 3-second video viewers the last 365 days. Some of those people probably won't even remember your brand anymore. I don't know if you can call that retargeting, separate discussion, but the fact is that the ROAS 100% will be higher for the add to cart one day versus the 3-second video viewers 365 days. The issue, however, is that unless you're spending tens of thousands per day on Facebook ads, you're most likely not able to spend any significant amount against that one day add to cart audience. So, you probably, maybe you can spend $5 against it and you get like 10x ROAS. But that means again, and then you hit this 3x frequency mark, you're spending $5, get a 10x ROAS, but your daily frequency is 3x. So you can't scale it up, right? So this doesn't really help you at all. I'm quickly showing another example for that. Add to cart 14 days, we are spending $50 a day, 4x ROAS, AOV and cost of goods sold are the same as in this example. Overall revenue 200, cost of goods sold 100. Our daily frequency is 3x, so it's capped. We can't spend more against that, otherwise we will get punished by Facebook. Our profit now is 50 per day. We're profitable, all good. Know what you want to test out of. In this example, what we tested out is, we changed the retargeting window to add to cart 30 days. We're able to spend double against that audience. Our ROAS drops to 3.5, but in the end, we have $25 more profit, right? Now we kept out at 3x. Now the next test would probably be something like add to cart 90 days. How high can I get it? And make more profit, right? So that's always the task. And if you understand this, then you're also very far when it comes to your retargeting ads. So you want to make sure, first of all, your daily frequency is between 2 to 3x. You want to make sure you use, good retargeting audiences so that you can spend some money against. I would say anything, if you're spending multiple hundred per day, anything where you cannot really spend more than 50 against per day, probably kind of useless, to be honest. And play around with the audiences. I wish I could give an exact number, exact audiences to use. However, it's up for testing, right? If you're spending more, probably add to cart 14 days will give you a higher ROAS than add to cart 30 days. But again, if you cannot spend enough against it, probably won't help you. So test around, play around with those audiences. Maybe test add to cart 14 days versus add to cart 180 days. And those are basically the three, core concepts that you have to understand when it comes to retargeting. Again, first of all, optimal budget, depends on your daily frequency. It may even be more than 30% of your overall budget that you can spend on retargeting. then why high ROAS can be bad, because it most likely means you're leaving money on the table. And then, the audiences to use a basic concept you have to understand. Generally speaking, the deeper a person in the funnel, the higher the purchase intent, but also the smaller the audience. Therefore, you cannot spend enough against that audience, which kind of goes hand in hand with a high ROAS, why high ROAS can be bad thing. So yeah, play around with the audiences. Again, I like to use ABO for retargeting so I can apply my daily frequency rules. And as kind of a bonus, is the audience size. And it is important to understand that the audience or your retargeting audience size doesn't increase proportionally to your top of the funnel audience. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's say you're spending $200 on top of the funnel. If you now increase your top of the funnel spend to $400, that does mean that your retargeting audience doubled. Facebook will still only go after those people who they think are likely to buy. Therefore, your audience size doesn't double. Maybe it goes up by 30%, maybe by 10, maybe by 20. I don't know the exact number. All I know is that you can't increase your retargeting spend the same way you increase your top of the funnel spend. So yeah, I hope there was some useful information for you. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you are a 6 or 7 figure brand that wants to scale, feel free to click the first link in the description.